This is Christopher McNabb, who is facing charges for the murder of his 2-week-old child in Covington, Georgia. After the
They starting off strong. What the?
child's mother reported the baby missing to police, local law enforcement immediately launched a search. Later that night, McNabb is seen in front of TV cameras begging for his child back.
I want my kid back, man. That's my child, man. I want my kid, man.
The next day, the child's body was found in a nearby wooded area.
How about you yelling
the cause
like
of
that?
death was blunt force trauma to the head, which was later ruled a homicide. McNabb was arrested and charged with the murder of his own 2-week-old baby. After he was found guilty, we now move on to the sentencing. McNabb can then be heard claiming his innocence.
I'm innocent. I didn't do it. I've maintained that the whole time. I would never do this. That's all I gotta say. I would never do it. I'm innocent.
And now the judge lets McNabb unknowingly choose his own sentence.
You claim you're innocent, so you tell me what sentence the man or woman that you claim did this should receive.
If you ever find out who did them, they deserve to be under the jail.
Okay, so they ought to get the maximum sentence.
Most definitely.
Okay. On the crime of malice murder, I sentence you to life in confinement without parole. On considering the death
Damn.
of another, I sentence you to...
After McNabb was handed down the max
He just
sentence,
set
he
himself
was moved
up.
to Hays State Prison in Tryon, Georgia, where he is serving his life sentence. This is Franklin Williams, who is convicted of multiple felonies, including armed robberies and
like he
fleeing
knocked everybody
police
out
in
in jail.
Cleveland, Ohio.
Again, I'm going to interrupt. Mr. Williams, listen to me. I'm going to gag you in 1 second.
Williams
Gag
conducted
you.
3 armed
What are you
robberies
talking about?
before leading police on a high-speed chase.
Where
He
they
was
say
later
that?
arrested and convicted. Now at his sentencing, Williams
Yeah,
would
he looked
not
like he
stop
knocked
talking,
everybody out.
despite more than a dozen warnings from the judge.
You not let me
That means zip it right now.
You trying to?
Does that make sense?
No, it doesn't. That's a violation of the HIPAA law, Judge.
Here we go.
This resulted in the judge ordering Williams' mouth to be taped shut.
If you spit
Dang, what?
Attempt to bite or injure any of my deputies, you're going to have a bad day.
Why he?
That's what it is.
Why?
At a
Why
following
he
court
do it like
appearance,
that?
Williams
He said-
has something to share with the judge and cameras.
Freedom of speech, no duct tape with the hashtag.
Aside from all the
Ooh.
interruptions, the judge can hand down Williams' sentence.
You face the potential maximum consecutive sentence of 134 years.
134
I order a 20-year
years.
sentence.
After Williams received a 24-year prison sentence, the judge later apologized for the duct tape and threw out that sentence. He then appointed a new judge, where she sentenced him to 33 years behind bars.
Oh damn.
This is Kamiya Gant, who is charged with
Why
the
she look
murder
like
of
that?
her
She
boyfriend
coming.
in Jackson, Mississippi. Reportedly, the attack happened during an argument between the two individuals and ended with the boyfriend
She look
being
like a-
violently stabbed to death. Gant was arrested
I don't
on
even
first-degree murder charges. In court, Gant would
One of
claim
those
her
things
murder
out
was in
Mario.
self-defense and her boyfriend was attacking her. But in the end, she was found guilty of murder.
The way I was portrayed, mostly everything was lies. There was a little bit of truth, but mostly I was convicted
Bruh,
of lies.
I
We
know
now
what she
move
look
into the
like.
sentence.
I know who she look like. I know who she look like. You seen Friday, the first one with Ice Cube and Chris Tucker. Look at her hairstyle. What's her name? Shit. What is her name?
Where Gant reportedly kept interrupting the judge.
Can I run the microwave? Felicia.
With
Yeah,
Gant
bye,
showing no
Felicia.
remorse,
Yeah,
the
bye,
judge
Felicia.
had some final words.
She look like
You
a.
stabbed, you stabbed, you stabbed, you stabbed until he was dead. I agree with the family.
no.
I hope you die in prison as well. You know, if this was a death penalty state, you'd be getting the chair.
In the end, Gant was sentenced
The
to
judge
life
was
in
reckless.
prison
He
without
wasn't
the
playing
possibility of parole.
He wasn't playing around with Felicia.
This is Kimberly Kessar, who is charged with the murder of her coworker in Nassau County,
She came in the court
Florida.
looking like a
Jordan
booger.
Beard is Jolene Cummings' cousin.
Kessar was working at a Tangles hair salon under a fake name. She reportedly was on the run
You know
for 25
she
years.
crazy. You know she crazy. Look. They gotta put a thing on her. I don't know what that shit is called, but they gotta put the thing on
And
her.
wanted in several states. She wouldn't be found until she brutally murdered her coworker with scissors and allegedly disposed of her body.
Oh,
This
no.
is Kessar after she was arrested and awaiting trial.
Look at her
We don't
smiling.
need it anyway, so I can say whatever the I want.
We're not on mute.
Oh, okay.
And this is what it was like to supervise her in jail.
She began to remove feces from styrofoam trays, the back of her cell, and smear on herself on the walls. She began to throw feces at Smith, Miller, and I.
Now in the trial, she had to
She's smearing doo-doo everywhere.
go to a separate room due to her outbursts.
She's smearing doo-doo everywhere.
I have refused it. I refused the public defender's office. They appointed Jolie Cummings' cousin as my public defender. What, you don't want the public to know that?
And she continuously
She's a
made
psycho,
false
bro.
claims about her former public defender.
Jordan Beard is Jolie Cummings' cousin. Jordan Beard is Jolie's cousin.
She was later found
Just keep
guilty
saying
of
that.
first-degree murder and was sentenced to life in prison without parole. This is Kyandria Cook, who was found guilty of carjacking charges in Volusia County, Florida. 18-year-old Cook and her then 17-year-old boyfriend had used a dating app to set up a carjacking, where the boyfriend reportedly shot the victim, leaving him seriously injured. After fleeing the scene and being on the run, the pair attempted another carjacking just 2 days later, but they were arrested. Now in court, Cook stands in front of the judge for her involvement in the theft and shooting.
Keeps you guilty of all 3 charges, sentence you to 20 years in state prison.
That is Cook.
I'm sorry, why she turn around like why she turn around like that? She look like a llama. Hold on.
Judge for her involvement in the theft and shooting.
Keeps you guilty of all 3 charges, sentence you to 20 years in state prison.
That is Cook's mother that can be heard crying.
Dang, I feel bad for the mother though. Dang.
Reportedly, the reason for this very emotional outburst is there was a miscommunication with the assistant public defender, where Cook and her mother thought she wouldn't face any prison time.
Bro, why she look like that? Oh, she passed out.
Cook's sentence was later reduced to 11 years in prison.
11 years, you better face
This is Jacob Morgan, who at 17 years old was found guilty of setting a house fire that killed a family member in Rock Hills, South Carolina. Morgan was left alone to look after his 14.
Look at his eyes. You can see it in the eyes. He looked like he was up to no good already.
Month-old stepbrother, and reportedly prosecutors said Morgan intentionally set the fire that killed his family member. In court, Morgan is at a probable cause hearing. Listen as the judge
Look at the way this dude walked. Like watch the way he walked.
That killed his family member. In court, Morgan is at a probable cause hearing.
Like he
Listen as the judge
animals
speaks.
or something.
So therefore, I am going to find that there is probable cause to charge the individual for General Sessions Court for late charge.
Look at this. You burned the house down.
Morgan settled for a plea deal where he pleaded guilty to involuntary manslaughter and unlawful neglect of a child. However, he stated he loved his brother and he always maintained his innocence.
Give him a haircut.
I love my brother. I still do to this very day. He's my best friend. To kill him and be killing in pieces myself. And I just wish I could have gotten to him in time.
Morgan was sentenced to 15 years in prison, but after serving only 7 years, he reportedly was released.
What?
This is Ignacio Rodriguez, who is the suspect in the death of his 4-month-old son in San Antonio, Texas. Reportedly, the child suffered a fractured skull and severe bleeding to the brain. Rodriguez was the lead suspect and was taken into custody. Now in court, Rodriguez...
When there's a child involved, it just pisses me off, like, to see people like him just
stands in front of the judge where he is now facing a capital murder charge, but reportedly he instead pleaded guilty to a lesser charge of intentional or knowing injury to a child causing serious bodily injury.
Why are you doing that to the child? Like, it don't.
Mr. Rodriguez, how do you plead? Guilty, not guilty, or no contest?
Guilty. The judge now hands down his sentence.
It is the order of the court that you be sentenced to 50 years.
50 years, you ain't going nowhere,
But this is the moment
boy.
that the baby's mother
You ain't going
confronts
nowhere.
Rodriguez.
I hate more than anything what you did to our son. And for that, I can't ever
His own son.
You were supposed to be our protector, not the one to break our hearts.
When the mother starts talking about her other child, Rodriguez insists that she tells the truth.
I feel
As she
bad for
gets
the
older,
mom.
she'll start asking questions.
Then tell her the truth. Tell her the truth. Tell her the truth. Tell her how everything was supposed to be. Tell her the whole truth. Don't lie to her. Tell her the whole truth. Tell her the whole truth. The whole truth.
Court officials quickly remove Rodriguez out of the courtroom.
Tell her the whole truth, Angela. The whole truth.
He is currently serving his 50-year prison sentence.
Now I'm
This
kind of
is
curious.
Damon
What
Kemp.
is the whole
He is
truth?
charged with the double murder of his roommates in Daytona Beach, Florida. Police were
What?
called to investigate a
Look at this dude's face, bruh. When he comes in the door
murder of his roommates
When he
in
comes to
Daytona
the-
Beach,
Look,
Florida.
right there.
Police were called to investigate a burglary at an apartment complex, and it was here Kemp allegedly confessed
Why
to
is
the
he doing
murders.
that?
He was originally staying with his two roommates when both individuals were shot several times in the apartment.
Dang.
During Kemp's bond hearing, he's now escorted into court in a wheelchair.
Unacceptable.
God!
Dang.
God! God!
The judge tries to get Kemp's attention, but he's
Dang.
completely ignored.
Mr. Kemp,
God!
Damon Kemp, I'm going to conduct your first appearance.
God!
For the victim's family, it got so tough they had to
said-
walk out. Kemp is currently in the Volusia County Jail awaiting his
Yeah,
trial.
He crazy.
This is Erica Butts and Shanita Cunningham. They were both
sorry,
charged
but-
with homicide by child
I'm
abuse
sorry,
in Somerville,
but
South Carolina.
What is
Butts,
going on here?
This is Erica Butts
Why they-
and Shanita Cunningham.
They did it
They were
on
both
purpose.
charged with homicide by child abuse in Somerville, South Carolina.
Oh,
Butts,
no.
who was best friends with the child's mother, was supposed to be caring
Child abusers, they deserve to go to prison, locked, whatever. They deserve to be on a far, far away island, locked up somewhere where they can't get out.
for the toddler for 2 weeks. The child was only 3 years old. She died from her injuries, reflecting weeks of torture. A time frame that matched the time she had spent with Butts and her lover at the time, Cunningham.
What must have been the
They
excruciating
look like two
sounds
lemurs.
that came from that child is more than disconcerting to this court.
After both women were found guilty, the judge now hands down their sentence.
The court finds it appropriate that each be sentenced to the State Department of Corrections for a period of life.
They were just sentenced to life in
Dang,
prison.
good. Look at her. Y'all should have never been doing that, man. I told him.
Butts
Look,
and Cunningham are reportedly at
No.
separate prisons serving their life sentences.
don't be hurting children, man.
This is Anthony Kirkland, who is a convicted serial killer in Cincinnati,
The
Ohio.
children are future, man. The children are the future.
They're right. Even my mom hated me, but I don't blame her.
Kirkland had previously served a 16-year prison sentence for the killing of his ex-girlfriend. A few years after his release, Kirkland begun his killing spree. Over a 3-year period, he killed 4 women, 2 of them being teenagers. Kirkland was arrested after his 4th murder, as he was caught with one of the victim's watch and iPod, which made him a lead suspect.
Stole the watch
Eventually,
and the
police were
iPod?
able to pin all the murders to Kirkland. Now in
Weirdo.
court, as the charges are being read out, Kirkland is facing the death penalty, and next he appears
That's what
to
you get.
faint.
Count 4, aggravated murder.
Kirkland was later found guilty on all charges and sentenced to death. He is currently on
What
death
in the
row
world?
awaiting his
This
execution
dude
at the
saw the Lord,
Chillicothe
look.
Correct. Kirkland
Look.
was later found guilty on all
He
charges
had the prayer
and
hands up. Watch.
sentencing the death penalty, and
Look,
next
he
he
done saw the
appears to
Lord.
faint.
Count 4, aggravated murder.
Look, he died right there. Look,
Kirk-
prayer hands.
Kirkland was later found
He
guilty
done.
on all charges
He's done.
and sentenced to death. He is currently on
That's what he
death
get.
row awaiting
That's
his
what he get, though.
execution at the Chillicothe Correctional Facility.
I'm over this.